everybody, welcome back to Sprueverse, my scale model universe. People of Earth, welcome to another update of my EVA Pod from Moebius. Now, I did say in the last update of EVA that the next time you'd see this kit, it was going to be complete on its stand and we'd all sit around and celebrate. But I thought to myself, what a ripoff. And I thought it was really important to get a little more detailed and refined with my build shows. So I'm learning as I go, and I hope you're enjoying the content. If you have just discovered me, please like and subscribe. And I greatly appreciate everybody's enthusiasm for the Dalek build. That was a lot of fun. And talking about the behind the scenes was a lot of fun too. And it struck me that that's why I wanted to do this particular episode. Well, I'm actually decaling right now the rear doors, and I'll show you a little bit of what else we've got and how we're going to sort of attack putting it together. And then I thought we'd do the finished reveal perhaps in another episode or in my base camp episode, because I desperately want to talk about bases. I've just discovered a couple of awesome places to find some very relatively inexpensive bases, I think personally. But anyway, here we are and we're decaling. Now I know all of you are completely capable of decaling, so this is not a this is not a decaling tip and trick show. This is just more like a hangout, really, because it struck me as I was building the EVA pod that my relationship with I have no relationship with 2001, but it did strike me that I knew Arthur C. Clarke, and I thought it might be fun while I'm decaling. Or decaling, for those of you in the UK. Help me out with that, because I'm not entirely sure if it's a pronunciation thing or it's a proper pronunciation thing. I honestly don't know. But anyway, here we are, and Arthur C. Clarke. So, as most of you know, or some of you know, or some of you don't know, I was head of programming for Steven Spielberg's television company Amblin for 5 years. And it was one of the best 5 years of my life. And one of the things I did while I was there was develop 2 shows that ended up on the air. One was Sequest, starring Roy Scheider, and the other one was Earth 2. And specifically, Earth 2 came about because I was really interested in the idea of sort of recreating Wagon Train, but doing it in space. What I wanted to tell you about was my development process, because one of the things Steven suggested I do is contact Arthur C. Clarke. And because of my relationship with Steven Spielberg, I was able to get Arthur C. Clarke on the telephone, giving me some of his thoughts and insights about space travel and how it would look in the future. And I thought that was incredibly, actually insightful and very helpful. And so we actually had these video conferences. Now you have to remember, this was 1992. And so video conferencing in 1992 was quite sophisticated, but we did it. And I would dial in and get Arthur C. Clarke on the phone all the way from Sri Lanka. And I had a lot of questions for him. And he was kind enough to give me some of his thoughts about space travel. Arthur C. Clarke was fascinating because he just had the most incredibly insightful thoughts about space travel. And one of the things that I thought was amazingly cool was when I asked him about vehicles in the future, because I was curious to know. I said to him, I asked him, I said, well, what are the what are the kinds of vehicles do you think we'd take with us to another planet? And I was actually shocked and fascinated by his answer. He said, horses. Not some kind of nuclear vehicle or anything. He said horses. And I said, well, why horses? He said, in my view, he said, first of all, they're incredibly durable animals. They work in incredibly difficult circumstances. They can also work in low oxygen levels. And they're incredibly sure-footed, and they can carry an awful lot on their backs. And I thought, well, that's brilliant. And so, and then he went on to say, and of course, if they fall down, get lame, or you can't use them anymore, you can actually euthanize them, and you can use their meat for food. And that was Arthur C. Clarke's thought process. But I thought it was amazing. And if you think about it, a lot of his rationale was actually quite sane. So anyway, I continued to talk to him for several weeks and got all kinds of insight about everything from the sort of hierarchical realities of traveling together in teams and how you sustain life, and what do you think might be out there, and will we find aliens, and on and on and on. And so it was an absolutely incredibly vital time of my career, because I was so grateful to be able to do that. And I got such a huge kick out of it. Look, I've got a torn decal here, it'll go together quite nicely. And I have a gloss down here, so if I leave it alone and I'm very ginger, you won't know that. The decals, for the most part, with the Moebius kits are pretty good, but once in a while, you get a couple that are pretty tricky. So you do have to be gentle. As you can see, we have completed this, and I think it's come out really well. What I'm going to do is let these decals dry, and then they'll get a coat of varnish, probably a matte varnish, or definitely matte on the outside, and I think I'll probably put a semi-gloss on the inside of this door, and then these two pieces will bond together, and that will complete the door, which then will go into the rest of the model. And what I'd like to do now is, let me just set this aside for a second. I've got the arms, which are drying. They've got a spray of gloss on them, the two armatures, and then I'll go to work on their decals. Now, curiously enough, in the kit, guys, if you get this kit or you have this kit, you may or may not know this. Now, I don't know if this has to do with a later version of it or not, but curiously enough, they send you a third set of the decals. Now, I'm guessing that the reason why, because they're identical, I'm guessing the reason why they do that is just because they are so delicate and they're so quite complicated. Actually, it's going to take me several hours to actually decal these, which is why it won't be in this show. But I suspect some people have complained or were complaining about the fact that they were tearing. So anyway, that's purely supposition on my part. So what I've done is I've got the two halves here. Here they are. There's A and B, and what I've done is I've prepped. Now you'll notice here I've got my Aztec dummy masks on from Lou. These look fresh because they are. As you know, I buy two sets. Now that can be a little expensive for some of you, but I'm honestly, it is well worth it. Lou's masks are terrific, And if you follow his instructions to the detail, and I mean to the letter, if you follow them to the letter, you're going to get a wonderful, wonderful result, I promise you. Because I know Lou, and he has talked me through some things with 3D printing. He knows an awful lot. He's very modest, but he knows more than he pretends to. But he's a very talented model maker. So anyway, Aztec Dummies masks. I am a huge believer. It's a religious thing for me. I love them. And anyway, we use the masks. So I have completed the front of the model, as you can see here. And everything is in. I'm waiting for the skirt to dry, and then I will install that. We might be able to install it right now, as a matter of fact. Let me see if I can do that for you. Here's the skirt, and it looks pretty good. I've put a little bit of dark paint, black paint behind that, just to sort of give the grill a nice sort of shadow effect in the back there. So yeah, that will slip on like that. Interestingly enough, it's a little warped, but that will go in, and that looks good. So I think we can attach that from the back here. There are two little pegs, and so with a little bit of medium CA, what I like to do with things like this, I don't know if you guys like to do it this way, but I do, is I always like to attach things from the back. I never put any glue on the piece if I can avoid it, because it just gets everywhere. And if you can anchor it from the back with a little bit of CA and some kicker, I find you get a cleaner result. So that is on, and I'm going to go in and pick out some details. There's a little bit of black that has to go on here. My howlite is covered so that when we give it its final varnish coating, I don't fog up the glass and mess that up. So I want to be sure to keep these masks on now until I'm finished. I've got a little bit of patching up here to do, a little bit of detailing and nicking and things like that. I've tried to be as clean as possible with this kit, but what I found is, especially when you're dealing with white, first of all, it shows every mark, and second of all, it's really difficult to get that surface perfect and keep it clean. So you've got to work extra hard to do that. Now, the howlite is wired with a little red light, but here we are in, this has been wired up with a little, I've got a little red 3mm light in there, and it is surrounded by a little black washer that comes in your Yay Monsters kit, EVA kit, if you're interested in that. And what it does is it surrounds the light, and it creates that iris effect. It's quite good. I'm sure you could figure out some other way to do it, get a little black washer or something from your local hardware store, and it might work just as well. But this happened to be the perfect width and thickness for a 3mm, so clearly it was either made for it or sourced for it. Either way, it works really well. The lights themselves are little nano chips that were supplied in the EVA lighting kit I got from Tenor Controls. I'm using the Tenor Controls kit because I have a remote on this, and I've showed you that in a previous episode. So curiously, they went with nanos, and I think maybe that was a scale thing perhaps. But I've tested them and they look pretty good. Everything is wired in here, and this is the last of the wires, so these just need to be cleaned up, and then they'll get attached to the motherboard on the interior of the piece. Now, what happens now, of course, is that the interior of the EVA pod drops onto these two pins. There's two pins right here, and I'll show you those on PhilCam. So as you can see, these are the pins that the actual interior of this model will sit on. That's all you've got, guys. So it's a little fiddly. I have had it on here, and you do have to be careful because you do not want to snap these because you'll lose pin registration and height and everything else. And then once they're on here, I'm going to have to figure out a way to snug this against the glass because it's not perfect. So I'm going to put the interior in this half, and then the idea is that the back half will slide into position like this, and then these two will be locked together. Now I'm going to end up with a seam at the top here, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with that yet, but I do know it probably has to be dealt with. So I will look at that seam when the whole kit is together. But for now, I'm just concentrating on some of the other elements to it. Now, the one other thing I will share with you today on this update is how I'm dealing with the base. And what I've done is, and I'm gonna, obviously this is gonna be in an episode called Base Camp, because I think it's gonna be fun to talk about several different types of bases that I've discovered. But I wanted to share this one with you because one of the things about this base, and this is just something I found in my junk drawer. I can't even remember what it's to, but it was a stand of some kind with a little threaded post. And as I've mentioned in a previous episode, I got a little bit of pipe, of tubing. This happens to be aluminum tubing, and it worked perfectly. It threaded over the actual 7mm thread that was on here, and it bit up really well. And then what I did was I drilled a hole in this, and I fed a pigtail with for a transformer out the back. Now, what I realized was that when I went to figure out how I was going to actually mount this, I came to the realization that I had two choices. Either to actually put this in here like this somehow, wedge it in, and then I was going to, in classic fashion, put some epoxy resin around it. But I've realized that that's not the way to do this, because you really run the risk of something not being square or level, and it also will make it impossible for you to actually mount it correctly, I think. And also then the other problem is you're stuck with the base glued to this thing while you're trying to put it together. Didn't make any sense to me. So what I've come up with is I got a little bit of brass tubing here, and this brass tubing has now a washer on the top of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to epoxy this, actually JB Weld, this to the underneath of this kit, like this. But it's going to drop in here, and I'm going to JB Weld that to this. And then I'm going to paint this, probably I will paint this black, a gloss black, just as I will with everything else. And then, but what this allows me to do then is to get everything through the wired up through into here, and then it's not actually glued to this base. It actually just feeds down and drops onto it and sits on the base like that. Just sits on here. It's a little bit of wiggle room, but I can deal with that. I can put a little bit. In fact, I will run some tape around here just to make that fit a little more snug. And there you go. And I think it's going to look really classy on there. And then if later in my illustrious career here on Spruverse, I want to sort of put it on a diorama of some kind that depicts a scene from the film, I certainly will. But that's the plan, and that's where we are. She's looking really good. And I have to say, this is a lot of fun to build. These kits do start to get a little more complicated. So if you are a mediocre modeler like I am, I'm not a master modeler. I just happen to be very passionate. And as I've always mentioned to you, I'm learning as I go as well. But I try to develop some skills that will not only make the hobby more enjoyable, but I think make it a lot easier to put these kits together. And if you pick up some tips or ideas, or you get motivated to try this, then I've done my job and I'm thrilled. So there we go. The next time you see this kit, everything will be together, and we will have it on its base, and we can talk about what's left. There are earmuffs for the sides of this, obviously. I'm going to use the Aztec dummy masks to paint those black and add these little thrusters to it. Here are the thrusters, and they will go into the earmuffs. And then I'll just do I've got a little bit of touch-up and detail painting to go, and a few other bobs and ends. But other than that, she's pretty good, and I'm thrilled with it. So there you go. That is my EVA update. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for sharing some time with me. I hope everybody stays well. Be safe, as always. Build something, and I'll see you on the next episode. Take care, everybody. Be well.